All right, we got one of my favorite people today. I think maybe one of the most productive people in the Bitcoin Nostr space. It's like if you look at the list of things that Avi Burra is up to, that's just the things we know about Avi. I bet you've got a few things in the background that maybe got up your sleeve because you're always doing something. Thanks for being on Radio Detox today.
No, thank you for having me, Heather. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the kind words. And yes, there's always something cooking, some of it public, some of it not.
I'm excited. I finally did get to meet you in real life. And so our moment of meeting was at Bitcoin Park in Nashville. There's big tall Avi with his cowboy hat, smoking a cigar, and it was like you walked out of a movie. Just great to meet you in real life finally. We were at NostrVille
Likewise.
3.0. Yes. Oh God, it was like I feel like I knew you. And then, but I'm here in Phoenix with QW. So I obviously I
Mhm.
get to hang out with QW once in a while. He's a really busy guy these days, but it was finally got to hang out with you in real life, and it lived up to my expectations. And we got to do NostrVille, and I hadn't done a NostrVille either. Hadn't been to Bitcoin Park yet. Hadn't even been to Nashville. So first of many occasions for me, I wanted to know what your feedback was, or what your takeaway was on NostrVille 3.0. What did you think of all of the cool stuff that went on? For kind of, we were there for a whole weekend.
Yeah, look, first of all, it's always great to be around other Bitcoiners and Nostriches, irrespective of which subgroup of Bitcoiners and Nostriches it is. It always feels like a family reunion, right? And so that
Mhm.
that was the best part, just getting to meet a whole bunch of folks. Some for the first time, like in your case, Heather, and some again, second, third, fourth time. So I had a great time. The conversations were high energy, high signal. You could see that there are people really committed to building, right? This is not,
Yeah.
I mean, I was in the blockchain world 7, 8 years ago, and you could see people were just showing up, and there was no sense of community, no sense of actual belief in what they were doing. It was all a set of buzzwords and all of that thing. And I've been in the healthcare tech world as well. And there's
Mhm.
such a jadedness at those
Yeah.
conferences. Here, it's all optimism. It's like I said, it's a family reunion. I've never been part of any community that feels this way. So yeah, it was great. I had a great time.
It's true. What do you think it is about us? Because clearly you've traveled around the world. You've been doing this for a while. You've been to a lot of these events in Prague. I don't know all the events you've gone to off the top of my head, but managed to be a part of this community. Just kind of, you have a breadth and depth, I think, that a lot of people don't, because you're not a chest thumping type person. You're more quiet, I think, and studious. You're very, I think, well cultured. So you're probably the best person to ask this. Is what is it about us? Weird group of, I don't know, rapscallions that kind of binds this culture together across the miles, across different countries. Even, what do you think the secret sauce is?
I think there are a few factors at play. And all of those factors are kind of in the broad family of ideological alignment, but also maybe just personality alignment. I honestly believe this is especially true for Bitcoiners, but also for Nostr to some extent. Most of us are misfits in the big bad world, right from when we were kids. I certainly the case with me. Never fully understood why things had to be the way they were. People would just assert that, oh, get over it. This is life. Life is unfair. Life is this. Life is that.
Nihilism.
You need nihilism, complete nihilism,
Hmm.
and defeatism. And, and I've talked to a lot of Bitcoiners who've said, yeah, look, ever since I was a kid, I never fit in. Something felt wrong, and I
Right.
didn't know what. I didn't know what it was. And I think Bitcoin comes along, and for a lot of us, it's like, wait a second. First of all, almost everything that felt wrong with the world suddenly makes sense through the lens of understanding the fiat world and then understanding Bitcoin. But secondly, there's actually hope now, right? Maybe it's a long shot. I don't know. But at least there is something, there is a solution. So we don't have to sit here and play victim saying, "Oh, the world's a terrible place. There's nothing we could do.
Yeah.
Let's just get drunk and whatever," right?
Hmm.
There is a real solution. And I think that hope and that from which so that is the ideological alignment. I think that is people believe that this movement or whatever you want to call it that we're part of is something that's going to if not lead us, at least our children, to a much better place.
Yeah, I've had that thought, working with Ainsley Costello and her being so young. I know who said this? Was it Sam Means on your podcast? This will be ready for Ainsley's kids. I think it was,
It was
I,
Sam, yeah.
yeah, as Sam said that. I'm like, I think about that sometimes, and and I have, I think Ainsley's the exception. That Gen Z who's just she's got it because I look at my niece and nephew and they're like, I want to play video games, I want to work and maybe save for community college. They're kind of in that stage where the niece is doing the college thing, the nephew's like, I don't know about this college thing, and I'm like, yes, can we expand on that? And he's working, he's got his girlfriend, but it hasn't quite hit them. I think that they may have, this is part of being young too. I think that there's a good portion of Gen Z that's kind of getting drawn towards that black and white thinking and that nihilism. And then there are the ones like Ainsley who totally get this and grasp it, and they've seen it work for them in this value for value economy, which is something I think
Hmm.
you're taking part in now with Plebchain Radio.
Hmm.
And can we just how did you guys because I feel like we need to go back now because Nostr's been around for a few years. I've been in it for almost 3 years, but active for like 2. And, I think PCR predates me coming to Nostr. When did you guys start Pleb Chain Radio? How did it all begin?
Yeah, so I joined Nostr on, I know the date is December 15th, 2022.
Mhm.
I think QW joined a week after that. And there was that in that initial period of Nostr, and there were a lot of the accounts that now everyone's familiar with, NIMS, not NIMS, whatever, came in that time period. And I guess they've built the social capital by sticking around in
Yeah,
the last 3 years and
web of trust.
continuing to post. Web of trust, exactly. So it was just such an incredibly fun time. It felt innocent. It felt people just having a good time. And you have to think about where the world was back then. That was when the Twitter files or whatever were dropping.
True.
Elon was, I think, wasn't the Twitter files? Well, there was something going on there, something
It
ugly
was
happening on Twitter. Maybe Twitter files
Elon
was
Elon bought
later.
it. Elon bought it, and
It
at the
hadn't
same time,
yet.
it was the Elon purchase at the same time that ChatGPT burst on the screen. So there was this this worry of I think the Twitter purge happened at the same time as well, like where they just a whole bunch of people got purged, like with no recourse. So
Yeah. So I think 2022, I think Elon had bought it by then. That's right. And the
mhm.
Twitter file stuff was, and you had all these Twitter spaces. And, this was a month after the, what is that, SBF fiasco, right, with
That's
FTX and all of that.
right. Yeah, it was an explosive, interesting time. I was a young Bitcoiner then. I was class of 2020, so I was kind of
Yeah.
cruising Bitcoin Twitter, but I don't think I was getting anywhere with that. I was meeting some people and making some friends, but not like Nostr.
Right. Twitter was just this insanely ugly place. I mean, believe it or not, it's actually gotten worse now. But it
Oh yeah.
it felt it felt just and I would try and communicate with people. Try and post something. Everything went into the void, right? I'm the same person. Nothing's changed. I'm saying the same things that I say now that I was saying those back then. I mean, no engagement, nothing. All I would see is this constant stream of anger coming in, anger and outrage.
Mhm.
And that was so Nostr felt like such an amazing contrast. It felt like some of us graybeards, I dare say, were teenagers back in the early days of the internet, and we
Mhm.
experienced just the joy of nonsense conversation, innocent and nonsensical conversations,
The freedom of it.
the freedom of it. Right?
Mhm.
There was no there were no algorithmic overlords dictating your behavior and all of that. So it was incredibly freeing. It felt like being young again. So there was all of that going on. And obviously, it wasn't just QW. There was several others I got to know in that period, became good friends with. We QW and I would have this constant back and forth, playful back and forth. We were doing these silly auctions for JPEGs, making fun of the NFT nonsense. So we'd put a picture up and say, okay,
Yeah.
start this picture for sale. So there was all of that going on. And then sometime in February, so just a couple of months after that, I'd reached out to him and I said, look, I don't quite know what this thing is. All I know is it could be huge. It could become huge one day, right? This thing being Nostr, right? Like what this movement that is organically taking place. I think we should get ahead of this and just be chroniclers of this revolution, right? So let's just start a podcast. And I'd never done a podcast before. He'd never done a podcast before. But let's just do it. Let's just do it, and let's just start talking to people, and see where it goes. So February of 2023, that's when Plebchain Radio began.
That's
And
when I
initially, by the way,
joined.
right. So initially, Kid was like, "Oh, I don't know. I had just had a baby." I was like, "Dude, just think about it. Talk to your wife. See if you can carve out an hour a week, and we'll make this happen." And then he eventually agreed, and then we started doing it. And basically, we've barely taken a couple of weeks off since then.
Yeah, and he's gotten a little bit busy taking over the family business, but he's still around, he's active in the space, and I think this is actually kinda cool because sometimes in a project, somebody gets busy and then it just kind of dies off. But you have not only kept Plebchain Radio going when QW gets busy, you've actually expanded. And I wanted to talk about like some of the things that have been going on. I think last year, so with Radio Detox, I did like one episode in March of 2025, and then like I just had life and work went crazy, and I had to stop doing the podcast for a little while. And then during that time,
Mhm.
I was using RSS Blue, so that went away, and so then I was looking at, do I do, Fountain for podcasters? Because Fountain absorbed RSS Blue and hired Dovidas, whom we love from RSS Blue, and so now Fountain has expanded
Yes.
as well. I haven't joined Fountain yet, I'm using Podhome right now because, the podcast went away, it doesn't have that much of a listening audience to kind of make sense, so while I get back in the swing of things, I wanted to try Podhome and see how some different podcasting 2.0 things work. And one of the cool things that I loved about RSS Blue, and you could probably answer a bunch of my questions about Fountain, and I love Fountain, but Podhome for me is it does a lot of things well, and it's very easy for me to kind of grab the value for value songs and add them into the podcast, the audio version anyway, and that to me is kind of the most important thing because I may do some interview podcasts like this where we're on camera. I also want to keep doing the music podcast and keep paying it forward for that community, and just kind of I think it's important to show that we can do that, and also show that like just kind of the variety of what you're doing on Fountain with Plebchain Radio,
Mhm.
and just kind of, can you explain where the podcast moved in 2025 using Fountain?
Yeah, yeah. So, we've had Oscar on the show. I think we had him first time in 2023. We've had him in 2024. So he became a friend of the show, and then I got to meet him in person. I think for the first time might have been in Madeira for Bitcoin
Mhm.
Atlantis. So built a good relationship with Oscar there, and then met him several times at other conferences subsequently. Um, and then he'd reached out to us early last year or spring of last year and said, "Look, we're
Mhm.
rolling out hosting on Fountain," and we were using RSS Blue at that time. We just
Mhm.
switched to RSS Blue, and he said that I don't know if he actually told us Dovidas was coming over because it wasn't finalized yet. But he said, I think words to the effect of you'd be a really good candidate because you're using RSS Blue.
Mhm.
And we said, yeah, I'm happy to do it, happy to be early adopters. So we were the first podcast to get onboarded onto Fountain. I can't remember exactly when we made the switch. Might have been May.
Yeah.
I can't remember now. But we were the first ones, right? We went through the whole onboarding session with them.
Oh, yeah.
So that was great. And that was the switch to Fountain. Gotta say, I love it. I talk to a lot of podcasting 2.0 folks, especially people who've been in that area for a while. Where they come from is, for better or for worse, right? This is just their perspective. Is I'm a podcasting 2.0 maxi. I'm an RSS maxi, which is fine. Right? That's your thing. And then Bitcoin is incidental. For me, it's the other way around. I'm a Bitcoin maxi, and
Yeah.
podcasting 2.0 is a tool. RSS is a tool for me to help in that broader agenda of spreading Bitcoin awareness and Bitcoin adoption. So this is a long way of saying, because Fountain is so Bitcoin centric, it was a no brainer for me to jump to Fountain.
Yeah, that's a good thing too, and I'm looking at the variety of things I could do with Fountain, and I'm like, I'm not there yet. Let me warm the podcast back up. I'm curious because the coolest thing that you did, and what I want people to really understand, whether you do music or not, it's very doable to kind of convert to podcasting 2.0. And I'm kind of
Mhm,
I'm hitting a point where I'm kind of straddling the line where it's like, yes, I want there to be Bitcoin adoption. Yes, I want there to be RSS adoption. Yes, I want there to be Nostr adoption. And can we fit it all together in a way that doesn't drive
mhm,
people away? Because I think we get very highly
mhm,
technical and I think we get really nerdy and I think we get ideological sometimes. I think we get a little jargony, whether we're talking about Bitcoin or Nostr or RSS. And in the end of the day, I think it doesn't look fun, but I think you and QW make it look fun and you make it look like it's teamwork. And you guys don't have any ego in this. You're very wonderful people to be around. You're easy people to work with. If you have an opinion or if QW has an opinion, and I'm like, well, where'd you get that from? You both can have like a good sit down conversation and be like, well, let me tell
mhm.
you, my thought process. And it's just very calm and easygoing. And I love that about you guys. You're just very down to earth. And so I hate it when the conversation and podcasting gets away from that because it doesn't get more people into the space. And I love to see more people either doing what you guys are doing and especially the new thing you're doing with the music. And I kind of wanted to know like
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
guys didn't play music on Plebchain Radio for a long time, but you suddenly added that. And I don't know if that's a technological, like technology got better or you just decided to go all in.
Yeah, it's a bit of both. So one of the things that happened, I've gone through phases with Plebchain Radio where, we're
Hmm.
approaching episode 150 now. And when you've been doing this week, so that's 3 years, right? We're close to the 3 year
Hmm.
mark. When you've done so many episodes, you invariably go through phases where there's a 5, 6 episode stretch, 10 episode stretch. You're just dialing it in. You're like, I've got stuff going on. I'm just going to show up and just
True.
blabber into the mic for an hour and then bugger off and back to my other stuff. That was happening at late fall of this up to 25 for me, right? I just felt
Hmm.
like I was dialing it in, felt half-assed. I mean, look, the thing is, because we've been doing it for so long, it happens, right? Maybe the
Hmm.
audience won't notice it, maybe the guests don't notice it, but I was certainly noticing it. I was like, well, I'm just showing up. Maybe spending 15 minutes before the episode to scribble some notes together to ask the guest questions. And
Understandable.
then, it happened. And it's not the first time this phase has happened,
Yeah.
but this
You
had,
know,
this had
I
been,
mean, as somebody who's put a lot of shit on radio TV over the years, like that's what happens. You do mail it in at some point. You do show up 5 minutes before you hit the air and you're like, oh my God, am I even wearing pants? And you crack a mic and sometimes it's the best show of your life. And then sometimes it's just a rut that you get into because life happens. Creativity can go up and down too. So it's totally normal, I
yeah.
think.
And so what happened then was that coincided with QW coming and saying, look, I've got way too much on my plate, right? Family
Hmm.
business, this, that, and the other, right? And I need
Hmm.
to take whatever it is, few months off just to sort this stuff out. I'll be back. Obviously, at that point, the question was, do we continue
Hmm.
or just take the easy way out, which is, okay, QW is gone. I'm not feeling it. Let's
Yeah.
just pull the plug. And I think for whatever reason, at that point, the answer became very simple to me, which is, okay, this is a perfect opportunity. I've been going half-assed for the last 3, 4 months. Maybe, and we're approaching a new year. Why not go all in, double down, and do this the proper way? Also, it's the format's going to change. It's going to be just me for a while, right? So it gives
Hmm.
me a chance to experiment a little more. So that was the original idea there. Then I had Aaron of Essex on the show. And he was like, look, why don't you just play music on your show, man? I was like,
Yeah,
you know
he's
what?
so
That's a
good.
fantastic idea. Why don't I just start? He's great. Yeah. So that happened a month ago. So I looked into it. I reached out to Oscar. They said they were just adding the time value split feature
Ooh.
on I think it's still in beta mode in Fountain. So
Hmm.
for folks who are not that familiar, if you're getting too technical here, what that basically means is if you play music on your podcast, you can set up just the segment of the music for a different split. So you can say 90% of the sats or 100% of the sats that come
Hmm.
in go to the musician. You can choose the song, and that's what happens. So for the rest, let's take a simple example. Let's say for the rest of the show, I'm getting 100%, right? But so if someone sends 10,000 sats at any point in the show, I will get the 10,000 sats. But if I set up a 90% split and they send the boost during the song, uh, where I've said that 90% split, and they send 10,000 sats, I will only get 1,000, and the musician will get the 9,000, right? And then you could do this
Awesome.
multiple times over the. I'm sure RSS Blue had this feature if I'm not mistaken, right?
RSS Blue did.
Heather,
Yeah, that was for me when RSS Blue was kind of fading. I was like, well, this is a key selling point for me because I'm not a coder, right? Like I'm a vibe coder, so I'm not gonna insert, I'm not gonna go through this whole like XML and podcast tags. I'm not gonna do that. I want to, slick UI where I could click some buttons and do it. Because also, fun fact about me, I have a learning disability with numbers, so the value time splits like is enough for me. I have dyscalculia because I just transpose numbers like a mofo. And so I get like riled up just trying to enter like 10 or 15 of these value time splits. So, if somebody out there is like, this podcasting 2.0 thing sounds cool, but I'm non-technical, like if I could do it, anybody can do it if I can do these things. So like I think that's a key because it makes it easy to sort of process, how do I do the thing? If you're thinking, well, how do these people put music on a podcast? Me coming from radio, I'm thinking about, oh, I've got a radio station and, this broadcasting company spends six figures a year on ASCAP, CSAC, and BMI. And so that's why I can play Taylor Swift on the radio, right? Like that's how it works. So if you are familiar with that old model, it's like, well, how do Heather and Avi play music on their podcast? Well, there's a whole world of music released to RSS, and we can put that on our podcast, and it's built in with this interface that we're talking about on various podcasting 2.0 apps that you use for podcast hosting. And so like we had RSS Blue, Fountain is absorbing RSS Blue and Adobe DOS for lack of a better explanation there. So I've moved to Podhome. Avi has moved to Fountain. I'm still looking at Fountain in the long term, and I'm very happy with Podhome too, because I think the key difference is just Barry, who does Podhome, does an awesome job, and it's a low monthly price of like $16. And so it makes it, I think, very doable for somebody who's like, I'm still trying to figure this out. Maybe I have no audience, maybe I have no experience doing this, and I'm just trying this out and I'm not sure about it. I think you get in at a lower price point where I think Fountain probably costs a little bit more, but has tons more features. Like you can add video, you can, there's a what do you guys call, like you guys have a subscription in addition
mhm.
to doing the zapping and the boosting with the Lightning Network. So you can, you can listen to me and Avi, send us Bitcoin. You can listen to Avi's podcast and him Bitcoin, or subscribe to, like, how do you guys do the subscription thing? Like you have, like bonus content or early access content, or I think both.
Both. That's how it works on Fountain. It's a very, very easy thing to set up. If you
Mm-hmm.
set up a podcaster account, you just go in, you click the button that says subscription, and then you can choose whether. So, and you can choose the price, right? You can set it at $50 a month, which would be silly. Or you could say, we've set it at $5 a month. And what we do is we there's bonus content which is exclusive to subscribers. We give a preview, that free preview to non-subscribers, and subscribers get the whole thing. There's early access which we did for a while. I
Mhm.
might bring it back for the Sunday show, and we could talk about the
Yeah.
Sunday show in a second.
Oh, yeah.
Uh, so yeah, early access for the regular episode, the Friday episode. There's no, it's just everyone gets it at the same time. But as we roll out new shows, we'll add the early access to that. Now we don't have advertisers. I don't know if we will. Maybe there's someone truly aligned with the cause who comes
Mhm.
up and makes a good offer, then perhaps I'd consider it. But definitely would never have a Fiat advertiser on my show, right?
Yeah.
That's just the.
I think that's a form of freedom because I don't want ads either. I don't want to deal with them. I don't want to sell. I don't want another thing to
Mhm,
insert into the podcast. I want it to just be about the music and like getting you to an audience. Like you obviously have your own audience, but getting people who listen to me going, "Oh, who's this Avi guy?" Like probably most people who listen to
mhm.
Radio Detox already know who you are and probably already listened to Plebchain Radio. I've been on Plebchain Radio. QW's had me on there. Like we did a live from Vegas. We kind of have a nice audience share, I think. But I think a lot of people might listen to me that, at least in the future, as more people discover this and go, well, who are these people? What are they up to? Why should I listen to them? And more importantly,
Hmm.
like, how can I do the same thing? I think most people probably can, record video and audio, and most services now, like we both use Riverside, they're easier than ever to record and edit and do it quickly. Like my other podcast, Soapbox Sessions, Derek and I recorded last night. We have a deadline, right? We got to get it out Thursdays, but holidays and whatnot. And I said, dude, we just recorded the podcast and I edited it and got it out for YouTube. And like, the whole process took me exactly 2 hours and 58 minutes. I couldn't have done that like 2 years ago. In the beginning, Radio Detox took me forever to produce. The
Hmm.
more you do this, the easier the process is. And it's like, well, can I do what used to take me 5 hours? Can I do it in 2 or 3 now so that I can get more done? Because, we're not making millions of dollars doing this. So like the easier it is for me to
Not
insert
yet.
the music, yeah, get the thing edited, put it out, but get the music in it and kind of have that freedom that we're talking about to do it our way and not have to sell ourselves or put in ads that are obnoxious. Some of my favorite podcasts have 6 minutes of ads at the beginning of them, and it's like the same two ads played over and over 3 times. And this is lunacy. This is the enshittification, and this is what people have to do to support their podcasting habit. Whereas like, I don't look at this as how much money I'm going to make off of it. I do, see the zaps and the boosts come in, and I definitely appreciate them from people. But I know I'm not going to pay rent off of this podcast thing, at least not right now. Now,
Hmm.
growing space is important, but that freedom thing is like, I can do what I want. I know that I'm not going to make $1 million doing this. I know why I'm doing this is because it's fun, and I get to talk to Avi, or I get to talk to Joe Martin or Ainsley Costello, and I get to be a part of building this world that I want to see, that we were talking about, for like, maybe our kids will have it. Maybe Ainsley's kids will have it. And that's just the freedom to say, no, I don't want to advertise some shitty Fiat, like, I can't think of something off the top of my head. And certainly I don't think that Radio Detox has that kind of following, but I don't want to have to put things on Radio Detox that I don't want to do so that I can go get the following, so that I can go make the money and become one of those like influencer-y type of people. I get to do Radio Detox how I want, when I want, and maybe I get a couple bucks, a week from it. And like, that's the best part, is I don't have to change who I am or who I talk to on the podcast. I don't know if that's something that I don't know, share, I guess, with Plebchain Radio.
Yeah, I mean, I should certainly share the sentiment about the fiat advertising. And now, having said that, though, if we haven't done this, but if there was some amazing new Nostr client that came up,
Mhm.
now chances are we talk about it on the show for free anyway. But if they came up to us and said, "Hey, can you actually talk a little more about it? We'll pay you X amount of money to do it." I think
Mhm.
if it's a really good Nostr client that actually makes sense, that's aligned
Yeah.
with the values, then that will certainly be open to that. Now that clearly is advertising, but I would be open to that at some point. Similarly for Bitcoin products as well, because although that's a lot harder to weed out the bad ones, right? So I mean,
Yeah.
you actually got to use it to make sure it's truly legit and it's aligned with your values. But
True.
yeah, so that's the sort of thing I'd be aligned to. For example, if Pfizer came and asked me to advertise whatever, the vaccine or something, and asked them to have a really good day and leave me alone.
Yeah, it's like if the Phoenix Open came up to me, it's like we joke about it around here because I live in Phoenix. If the Waste Management Open came up to me and said, "Hey, you want to advertise?" I'd be like, "No, you have nothing to do with me." And if
Yeah.
they dangled a bunch of money in front of me, I'd be like, like, I'm not on sale. It's like, but if it was, someone that it's the web of trust thing, and it's just living it in real
Hmm.
life of like, okay, if your product's amazing, I've tried it, I've tested it, maybe I've used it for a while. I did these things in radio. Like, I actually made money. True story. When I was like 21 years old, I used to do an on-air sponsorship for like Max Factor Lipfinity, and I made a ridiculous amount of money for it. And I had to record a commercial every day for lipstick. And it made sense because I was a woman on the air. Our target demo was women 18 to 34, and that's the sort of thing that they would buy. And so that sort of thing would make sense. And for me, it's like, well, I don't know what people in the value verse want other rather than like, you know, because we have this, I don't know, like you were calling us misfits earlier. It's like, well, we have people in music who are putting their music online and trying to get away from Spotify, get away from, you know, having to pimp yourself on Instagram so that people will give you a few spins on Spotify that you're not going to make any money off of. You know, that's kind of you know, just trying to reach that audience who's outside of like the Bitcoin and Nostr, the people who need this stuff. It's so hard, and we keep trying. You know, that's what is important to me and motivates me to do this because you know there's so much talent out there that deserves to be heard, and this is a way that we can do that. And it's just kind of we need more Avi's and QWs and Plebchain radios and radio detoxes and soapbox sessions. We need more people to show that we've got this amazing place where we can do this amazing thing and kind of create this alternate, you know, parallel path to the traditional music business. And you can do it independently and you can earn Bitcoin and you don't have to worry about a rights organization like CSAC and you don't have to, you know, worry about royalty checks coming out quarterly from ASCAP. And that's, I think, the cool thing about playing music is I think you guys have, I'm assuming, a pretty big audience. So the choice to kind of get into playing a little more music on Plebchain Radio, I think that's just going to be great for this space and probably bring in some more interest, hopefully more musicians, hopefully more fans, hopefully more podcasters. So we can get more shows that play music. That's, to me, that's huge.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I'm doing it because it's fun, but I certainly recognize all the knock-on benefits that come from that. But it is fun playing music, talking about it, and you know, I'm not the kind of person who's going to say anything mean about the music. So I wouldn't pick a song that I would criticize in a bad
Hmm.
way, right? So I'd pick a song that I was going to say something nice about. I picked it because I liked it. So it's fun. It's fun doing it, and then you know, in fact, I've been having so much fun that I said, let me just do a music show.
Hey.
And I know it's not going to be the first one. There are obviously several out there
Hmm.
that take it, do the value time split and all of that stuff. Uh, you know, I thought I would do a nice laid back Sunday show. Actually, really, the conversations can get a little intense and philosophical at times,
Hmm.
or just very technical in some cases. And that's, I think it serves its purpose for the Friday show, but I want a completely laid back Sunday show. So I'm calling it Sunday Brunch. The idea is to
Nice.
mimic the kind of conversation that you would have on a Sunday brunch, which is just decompressing from the week, just shooting the breeze. But the idea, the twist here is the guest is the DJ. So every guest has a little bit of homework to do. They have to go to Podcast Index or Fountain or wherever it is, find 3 to 5, preferably tracks that they really like, and then send them to me beforehand so that I can load them up on the Riverside Media Board. That's the only way it actually plays on the live stream. And then come and chat and you know talk about life or whatever. And then every few minutes we play a song, and then they tell me why they picked that song, what it means to them, and then we just move on to the next topic, and then the next song, and just that's it. Easy 1 hour, hour and 15 minutes, whatever it's going to be. I'm hoping it's an easy, laid back conversation, but with Bitcoin as an ostriches, chances are we're
You never
talking
know.
about some crazy Titanic conspiracy with the Federal Reserve or something else.
We'd be talking about meat and chemtrails on a Sunday morning, getting riled up, and like it. And then, by the way, I like this song by Joe Martin. No, it's but so the first one is going to be, you know, this podcast will probably come out after it has happened. So the first one is with Oscar Mary. It'll be
Yeah, I know. I couldn't think of a better person to have for the first episode.
yeah,
Just because you know, we're talking about they're making a huge push into music. Uh, yes, and Oscar's a friend, I think, and it'll be really good for him to come and talk about some of that stuff, what they're doing in music, and then play. And I'm curious to see what his playlist looks like. Yeah,
yeah.
so it's going to be Oscar. We're going to live stream on Nostr as well, on Zap.stream on Sunday, and then maybe have the episode out for subscribers the next day, and then for non-subscribers a day or two later. All the time value time splits, all of that set up. So the artists get 90% during the song. The rest of the time, it's 50-50 between the guest and me. And then one thing I do need to figure out, and this probably needs to be vibed somehow,
Okay.
is during the live stream on Zap.stream, how to split the zaps that come in in the same way,
That's a
because
good question.
value times spirit is an RSS concept, a podcasting 2.0 concept. It's not a
Mhm.
Nostr concept, right?
Right.
I don't know how you do that. Yeah. So I'll have to think about that.
I feel like this is the age-old problem, that there's a couple of things on the technical side, and I don't wanna get into technical weeds. I always like to word things. It's very, like, non-technical. So, like, and you and I both being Riverside people, that's interesting that that's how you do it, because I was wondering how you were gonna do it. So are you and Oscar going to do the music show on video, or is it gonna be audio only?
It's going to be audio only. I mean, we might.
Okay.
It's just it's so much easier to be relaxed and
Yeah,
stuff. The thing is, this is
true.
my video setup. I'm sitting in a fairly uncomfortable chair, and I don't have
Mhm.
my. I'm on my headset, but this is what mic stand looks like, which I
Yeah.
don't have my mic set up. So I'd have to put it up here like this. It's kind of uncomfortable.
Mhm.
So if I can get a more comfortable setup with an armchair and a nice little
Yeah, that's a
the mic
Sunday
stand,
morning show. Yeah, you need an
yeah,
armchair, and you could just be in your pajamas. We're like, and I don't know if I
yeah.
can turn this off. I probably can't in the middle, but we lost my set last night for soapbox sessions. Like the fake background is what I prefer, because I'm actually in my closet. Like I soundproofed my
Hmm.
largest closet and turned it into a recording studio. Put a desk in here. It's like rugs and blankets, and like every linen I have is
Yeah.
stacked in here for sound deadening. So this is like the old school easy way to make a little sound recording studio. So that's how I do it. So it's not a good looking room. There's like, sweatshirts here, and my door is here, so it's not pretty. So that's one part of it. And like live time splits are an issue. Video time splits would be the next frontier. We're not there yet. But even the live time splits with audio or with the Zapstream, like we do need to like start vibe coding some solutions there for sure.
Well, Oscar might have something cooking on that, but within the
Ooh.
Fountain universe, though.
Okay.
Yeah. One thing so the other thing I again, this is after QWW. The other thing I took a hiatus is I've started streaming on my own Zapstream server.
Mhm.
I'm self-hosting my. I don't want to use that infrastructure. So maybe for the Sunday show, when Fountain is ready, I'll move to the Fountain infrastructure. They'll be using Nostr for streaming as well, but they'll
Ooh,
build
okay.
their customized thing, which might allow for real time DApp splits. So once they have that, just for the Sunday show, I might do it through them. We'll see.
And again,
It's
real
early days. I
time.
haven't.
Yeah, oh, we are so
Yeah.
early. Is that real time with
Yeah.
audio or video or both?
Well, I think both.
Okay, that would be interesting. I'd be interested in that, 'cause another application that I think of, or use case, I should say, for podcasting 2.0 would be, what if I wanna teach a live yoga class and,
Mhm.
do it on video and with the music? Like, that would be the ultimate convergence of technologies. If I can teach yoga and people can take the class and listen to a playlist of music that I have prepared, and have it, so that the audio works, and so that my voice track is above the music, but people get to hear the music as well, and then maybe obviously get a playlist later so they could do the yoga practice again with the same playlist. I think that would be a really cool use case as well. But I'm not there yet. What I've done with that is I'll take, like, when I was doing Hive Talk yoga, I would take the video of the class with no, silent, no music is playing, I'm just talking to the students, and then I would take it and I would lay the music in later using Riverside, and then I would post it online on my yoga site, and then people could kind of
Mhm.
get, but oh my god, this is so tedious, because I feel like even Riverside's not quite there as far as doing that sort of production. They've gotten a lot better on Riverside, but laying in audio tracks or different video tracks with video has been a little laborious.
You do have a media board. You see the
Mm-hmm.
little music icon
Mm-hmm.
that you could just upload before the show. You can upload all of your tracks there now, and
Okay.
you can adjust the volume. It allows you to adjust the volume there. What I have been so this is the other upgrade I've made to the podcast is I'm actually doing some real post production. I've
Mm-hmm.
upgraded to Logic Pro, which is
All
like
right.
not it's not GarageBand. It's a
Yeah.
real a professional tool, and I've been playing around quite a bit with the compressor and the equalizer and all of that stuff. Just
Mm-hmm.
moving different frequencies down, so it allows you to. And I've been using AI for everything. Hey, I'm in Logic.
Oh yeah.
I'm lost. help me. And says, okay, yes. And then I send a screenshots of this saying, no, I don't understand. I says, no, you go to the top right and press this button. So it's super helpful to use AI for that kind of
Good.
stuff, learning how to use a complicated tool like Logic. But but the reason I brought it up is it allows you to lower the volume, preset lower the volume, and then at the level where your voice actually can cut through it. And then you just load it up in the Riverside Media Board and you do it live. Now, so this Friday's show,
Mhm.
I know your episode will probably be out after the show, but so on Friday, January the 9th,
Ninth?
9th, which is tomorrow at the time of recording, I am going to be actually doing this. I'm going to be doing a live reading of 4 of Max Hillerbrand's essays
Mhm.
set to vibe crafted neoclassical music. I've spent hours. I've never spent this much time on a podcast. I
Oh my
spent
god.
hours on Mureka getting the prompts just right, just to make the music match with because I don't want to use regular. I'll be screwed if I use regular classical music
Exactly,
on a
because
podcast, right?
that's one of the worst ones with
Yeah,
Brett's.
yeah. So I'm doing that, and I found an unbelievable musician, like this a prog musician from England. I think found him on Podcast Index, or yeah, and I'm going to be playing 2 of his songs interspersed. So yeah, trying to convert the podcast into performance art. We'll see.
Dude, only Avi would do this, and it's like Max has, like, these really heady, I mean, like, amazing writings, just kind of like you do, and it's just got what a perfect match for Avi to read them and be kinda like a Bitcoin Audible, but, like, this is the cultural mashup that we didn't know we needed. Avi reading Max Hillebrand with, like, the perfect classical music. I've been on a classical music binge this week myself, so I'm really gonna enjoy this one when you're doing that one. So, okay, we have talked a lot about podcasting 2.0, and like you were a gent. That's like probably more than I thought we would talk about, but that's important stuff. So hopefully, I think this space of podcasting for this world where podcasters have the ability to have a little more freedom, even just to get away from advertising the way it's traditionally been done, and we have the freedom to support musicians and other creators like you supporting Max's essays. I mean, that's just another way that podcasters can support an ecosystem and support creators who are doing things differently. I love that. There's so much creativity going on with
Mhm.
the tools that we have been improving the last few years, and also like the ideas. Just it's good to see. I'm glad you didn't quit Plebchain Radio. We need Plebchain Radio, and we need all these ideas in this space just to kind of show people like what can be done. So now I'm going to switch gears into talking about your docu-series, Finding Home, as I just watched them all yesterday to just kind of prepare to talk to you about this. So I signed up for Indie Hub. I had no idea. Indie Hub's cool. Like I know I've probably talked to Zach online, but I had no idea that when I watched Finding Home, I would be streaming sats, or that I could pay in Bitcoin, and that there's a choice when you sign
Mhm.
up at Indie Hub that you
Mhm.
can pay with your Bitcoin wallet, or you can pay with your credit card. It's your choice, right? So you got some freedom of choice there. And then I started watching, and I'm like, oh my god, I can see this. The sats are streaming while I'm watching Finding Home. So I loved both episodes. This is so Avi, because Avi is just so cultured and just so laid back. And you're interviewing Shakib at the Safari restaurant in Harlem, and then you go to Prague and you're talking to Grafton, and just kind of the premise of this being finding home. And the one thing I don't know about you, Avi, I don't know, you've got an accent, but I don't know where that accent is from. Where are you from, like originally? Where did that accent come from, Avi?
Yeah, if I tell you where I'm originally from, you won't believe that the accent is from there. But I was born and raised until I was 20 in India. And then I moved here when I was 21.
Oh
Very nice.
wow.
But moved to New York. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So where's home for Avi?
It's a good question. It's a very good question. I mean, maybe that's the reason why I'm making the show, because
Mhm.
it's an unanswered question. Probably the closer look. I mean, I love the country of my birth. And my parents are still there, and I have a deep
Mhm.
affection for it. But I didn't. I was only a boy when I left. New
Mhm.
York City was where I became a man. Probably the closest is New York City, but
Mhm.
you know, it, yeah. Yeah, but maybe it's a question I still need to answer by. I need to make 12 episodes of the show to answer that question. 12 seasons. I'm sorry, 12 seasons of the show to be
It's
able to
yeah,
answer that
like
question.
Plebchain Radio. It's got to go on for years, but to answer kind of or like well, Plebchain Radio is chronicling our Nostr Bitcoin adoption, and then of course finding home is a really unique premise and of like is Somalia home, is Prague home, is Mississippi home, is New York
Hmm.
home, and it's I've really got me thinking about like I've always been looking for home too because I'm another person who's just kind of bounced around and like I was born in the Bay Area and I consider San Francisco and the Bay Area home. But nobody lives in our hometown anymore. Everybody everybody left the Bay Area like I did 25, 26 years ago because it was like we got hit with housing and inflation first. It was $1,000 a room to rent a place in my hometown and around the Bay Area, more in San Francisco. I'm from the East Bay and the peninsula is where I grew up. And I was like, wow, I'm like a dumb kid who hasn't graduated college and I'm 20 and how am I going to pay, 2,200 a month for a crappy place to live? And now, 26 years later, I'm like, this is kind of a problem now everywhere. Wherever the housing is
Hmm.
overpriced, and my niece and nephew still live at home, as they're in their early 20s, and that is true of a lot of early 20 somethings. Gen Z
Hmm.
is kind of screwed. So like, there's that financial, the fiat evil comes into my story of finding home, and now I'm like, well,
Hmm.
I don't know. I've spent most of my life in Arizona, and this is where I live right now. I don't know that this is the final destination. I like places. I don't know that I love places. And then when I go back to San Francisco to do things there, it's changed so much. It is not the San Francisco that I grew up in the 70s or the 90s. It's very oh boy, it is the valley. The Silicon Valley thing used to just be like, the valley, but now it's the entire Bay Area. It's all the way up into San Francisco, and now it's the world because a lot of us we're remote workers in tech. So like, I feel like I'm in Silicon Valley in Phoenix. So I got TSMC up the street making semiconductors. We have a lot of tech companies here as well, and it's like I can't get away from Silicon Valley even if I want to. Like, it's a part of me. So it's like, is that home? Does home follow me, or do I go home? I don't feel like I have that homing pigeon instinct like a lot of people do. And then I lived in Kansas for 13 years, and
Hmm.
sometimes I got so excited one day. I was at a party and it was our Christmas Day party, family party. Barry Sanders comes on screen because we're watching football, and I was like, oh my god, Wichita. My cousin looks at me funny, and she's like, is he from Wichita? And I'm like, do you not know that? Do people not know Barry Sanders is from there's like certain things that you pick up on, and I was like so overjoyed to have this like Wichita moment, and everybody looked at me like I was crazy because like that's like one of the biggest things in Wichita is like Barry Sanders, Wichita State basketball, and when Harrison Ford comes to town to visit, there's just these kitschy little things that folksy Midwestern things that the way you talk, the way you say excuse me, and or the food that you eat, and it's like, well, what makes home? Because I could probably be home anywhere. And now I'm looking for a new one. I want to live somewhere else, Avi, but I don't know which place to choose. And so I have to watch a lot more Finding Home. Maybe I can get some ideas from some of the people that you've interviewed.
Well, it's funny you actually bring up the topic of finding home today. Today, maybe an hour before I joined the show, today, at the time of recording is January 8th, I dropped the
Mhm.
trailer for episode 3
You did?
of
Now
Finding
that I
Home.
watched two? Okay, cool. I got to go see now. When is it coming out?
It's coming out on Wednesday, the 14th of January.
Good,
I
good. I
believe
need some
Wednesday
more.
is the 14th. That was the Paraguay episode. And really the premise of the
Right.
show is to follow, like we've talked about it, but is to follow Bitcoiners not, or freedom tech developers, right? Nostr Bitcoin
Hmm.
around the world, where especially if they're expats, right? And we
Yeah.
just have conversations with them about over food. In some cases, it's in the first episode, which is just a pilot. So we filmed just one session with
Hmm.
Shakib, the proprietor of the Somali restaurant in Harlem. That
Hmm.
was just one session. Second episode was in Prague with during BTC Prague of 2025 with Grafton.
Hmm.
So we had multiple locations over 3 or 4 days. Similarly, the Paraguay episode has a lot more, right? it's just talking to these people who try to create a new home for themselves, right? And it's parallel journeys. One is finding this physical home, right? They're expats. They're trying to
Yeah.
create a new life for themselves. But the other is a more metaphorical journey of finding their sovereign home in the work they do in Bitcoin, in Nostr. In some sense,
Yes.
we're all expats. We're all refugees from Fiat.
We
Um,
are.
and we found our home in home in Bitcoin. Yeah.
Which brings me to one of my most important questions, and I'm
Hmm.
excited about the Paraguay episode. I became interested in being an expat, but didn't do it. Like physically looked at different places. At the same time, in 2020, that I became a Bitcoiner, I also started looking at like why do I live in the United States? You know, and looked at my genealogy and what brought my
Hmm.
family here from Poland, and how that whole story is a long one. But I was like, I could do the expat thing, haven't done it yet. I'm definitely open to it. Like I would love to see where in the world I fit better, but I think that's something heavy that you just hit on, the being expats from the fiat world. And I work not at all in the fiat world. I work 100% in the Bitcoin Nostr, technology space.
Hmm.
I'm a tech bro. And that happened for me in 2025. I knew at some point, maybe 2023, that I wanted to work full time in Bitcoin and or Nostr. And like Nostr being young back then, I was like, well, that's a dumb idea. What a Nostr am I going to do? What companies are hiring for the marketing kind of stuff that I do? Or do I be a journalist? Because I was still a journalist as recently as last year too. And so leaving the fiat mines, I guess, does make us kind of expats, which is something you did last year. We both, actually, a lot of
Hmm.
people, I would say, in our Nostr cohort have left finally the fiat mines. It's something I think we all worked for. Are we expat? We are expats from the fiat working world, would you say?
Yeah. Yeah. Expats, certainly not vacationers. And yeah, in our case, refugee is not a nice word because I feel like we're running towards something, right? Rather than running
Hmm.
away from something. Although at times it does, yeah, it does
Yeah,
when you're there, it makes you want to run away from it. But yeah, I did. July 4th of last year, interestingly enough, was my last day in Fiat, my Independence Day. Uh,
that's nice.
yeah, chose that date intentionally. Yeah, I was in a large health tech company, a name that I'm not going to mention, but probably everyone who's listening to the show has heard of multiple times and hates. A large healthcare company, and I just couldn't take it anymore. I was okay because I was sort of on the side running an AI innovation team, so I was in my little sandbox building
Hmm.
things. But after a point, it just catches up with you. I couldn't take it anymore, and I left. I left. I had to. It was ruining my life, ruining my health, and without without an actual safety net, I jumped, saying I'll just do Bitcoin
Same.
and Nostr stuff. I'll figure it out.
To figure it out. You had
We'll s-
faith. You took a leap of faith.
yeah, yeah,
When you say it was ruining your health, was it the stress of the job? Was it the stress of the ideological shift? I know I last year I felt very much like it was a record scratch going between having a foot in the Bitcoin world and working there, but then also having a foot in the fiat world. And it was like two parts of my day that I couldn't quite reconcile. It didn't feel congruent. It didn't feel good. And like I knew I would get there. I knew I'd get where I wanted to be, and I did. But it was exhausted me. I don't know if that was like, did it make you physically sick? Was it psychologically sick when you talk about the impact on your
yeah.
health?
So for the longest time, it was a low grade existential angst, which is because the job hadn't become toxic. It was just a nonsense
Yeah.
job, right? Just nonsense fiat job. So I was like, yeah, well, at least it pays the bills, and it's
Yeah.
not horribly unpleasant. But what am I doing? There's no meaning or purpose to any of this work, but other than the fact that I am able to keep the lights on. I think there was a 1 year period, or yeah, almost 1 year period between summer of 2024 and summer of 2025 when I finally just couldn't take it anymore and quit, where it became actually toxic, like decidedly toxic.
Mhm.
And I was clinging on, saying, well, what about the money? What about you have to keep the lights on, I have a family, all of that. And it was just a horrible feeling to wake up every morning. And the first thought is, oh crap, another day. This is
Yeah.
no way to live, right? no way to live. And then, people, not respecting your boundaries. And when someone doesn't respect your boundaries, then I'm the one who has to become unpleasant, right? Or not unpleasant, but just have that confrontation with them, saying, right? I
Hmm.
never chose this confrontation. They put me in this position where I got to confront them for just not respecting my boundaries and, or going behind my
Yeah.
back and all of that. It's not pleasant at all. It became increasingly unpleasant, and my stress levels were very high. And to what end?
Right.
Nothing. So it just became, when the answer arrived, it was blindingly obvious to me, which is up until that point, it was like, well, I'm trapped. I'm trapped because I have to have a job to pay the bills. I'm a prisoner in this job, and that's it. And then I said, wait, I'm not a prisoner. I've had the key all along. The door's right there. All I have to
Yeah.
do is walk out. And I did. But it took me a year of incredible unpleasantness to actually have that moment of clarity.
What would you recommend people do when they want to leave Fiat for good? And I say this as somebody who was looking at a stack of resumes this morning of people who just want to work for Runster, and Runster being an app that was born of your Nos Fabrica challenge last year. And I see people and I go, okay, these are solid Bitcoiners, and I guarantee you, every single person here, whether they've communicated it effectively or not with the job application, they want to get out of Fiat, and this could be their first step. And to me, that's super exciting to
Hmm.
see. So what would be your advice to someone who's like, okay, I'm where Avi was. I'm miserable. This is not congruent with my values or ideology. I know that I can do something in Bitcoin. I bring skills to the table. But I think for me, I didn't have a bad job. So it was like, cool, I can part-time it in Bitcoin. I got my Bitcoin job. Nobody cares what
Hmm.
I'm doing. And it's like, but it gets hard. You get into a rut because, yeah, it does pay the bills, or you have some kind of security and stability and a family to provide for, maybe, or you're comfortable because the job's not bad, and you go, oh, well, how do I get to the next spot? How do I get from Fiat to Bitcoin so there's no looking back? At some point last year, I realized I was going to get a Bitcoin job, and there was no going back from that. And then I had to
Hmm.
understand and grasp that. And once I grasped that there's no going back to Fiat, that was the mindset that broke everything open for me and got me to where I am now. So
Yeah.
I don't know what your advice would be.
It really depends on what stage of life they're in. I would
Hmm.
say if someone's in their early 20s and they don't have, or early mid 20s, even late 20s, and they don't have any dependents, just do
Yeah,
it. That
do it now.
don't do it now. Don't
Yeah,
even like don't if you truly believe in the movement, what are you doing? What are you waiting
make
for?
this
Right?
your life. Do it. The proof of
Make this
work.
your life. Just do it. I think it gets a little trickier if you have a kid who's depending on you, right? And
Yes.
or more than one, multiple kids depending on you, and you need to do right by them. And I think then even that splits into a few scenarios. One is if your job is pleasant enough, or not horribly unpleasant, and you have enough time to do stuff on the side, then just do that, right? Just do that, mind that fiat, save, live as frugally as you can, save the rest in Bitcoin, knowing that if nothing else, that Bitcoin's going to be life rough for you in a year or two, and your job's not killing you. So, and you have time to work on, at least for a few hours
Yeah.
a week, on what you like. That's actually, in some sense, a really good scenario to be in. So that way you
Yeah.
do it, 2 years, 2 or 3 years, you've stacked enough. You're like, okay, you know what? I have enough runway for a year, because number does go up over a long enough time
Yeah.
period.
It does.
I bought myself a year. Now I can go all in for a year and make this happen. So that's a good scenario. I think the trickiest scenario is when it's a decidedly toxic job and you don't have a
Yeah.
stack to fall back on and you have dependents. What do you do then? I still think the right choice there is not to kill yourself, because you want to be there as a parent
Yeah.
for your kids. You want to be present. And if the job consumes you, you won't be able to do that. You're better off as a
Yeah.
guy with no savings and no job, but a present parent versus a dead parent, or there's someone
Yeah.
who dies of stress.
Yeah. There's a trade-off to everything. And it's like, well, I don't have a child depending on me. My adopted, kid, she is an adult. So she's got her own life. I was already freelancing. So like the way that I got in where I am is because I freelanced my way up into a full-time job working at Soapbox, but
Hmm.
I started freelancing working at Wrigley and then started freelancing working at Soapbox while I was still doing B2B social media at an agency. And then what else happened in there? Oh, and then there was the B2B world slowed down, right? Because, marketing, economy, the way tech
Hmm.
startups are, et cetera. So then I was like, well, I need to do something. So I went back to an old job. I went back to my job from 20-year relationship working at KTAR News. And so I went back to that for a little while. And that was where the record scratch came in because I would work all day in the morning doing my, Bitcoin jobs and Nostr jobs. And then I would be like, okay, I got a hard stop here. I got to go drive to the radio station and go report for the afternoon, early evening. And then, as news is consuming. As soon as I step back into a radio TV station,
Hmm.
they're gonna be like, "Hey, can you do this too? Hey, can you do this too? Hey, can you come in on Saturday? Hey, can you work a little late? Hey, can you cover this? Hey, Trump's bombing something. Can you do, can you do a little extra coverage there?" And it turns into like this whole like being in two worlds that aren't congruent. So it's like, okay, in the morning I'm working on freedom tech, and in the afternoon I'm reporting on the Fiat war. Got it. This is so surreal. And then when the opportunity came along to like let go of the Fiat world completely, and that happened in about July, so I got to walk out on the Fiat world finally for good. It was August 1st. I started full timing it in this space, and it's like, okay, I had a little I'm solid as a freelancer. I already know this world. I started doing freelancing in like 2006 before it was cool to work remotely from home. Like we didn't have all these phrases back then. So I think that gave me a little bit of like no fear. Like like there's if you got to have no
Hmm.
fear, I guess, to be in Bitcoin anyway, because everybody's gonna our misfit factor is high, and family and friends sometimes don't understand the conviction that we have about Bitcoin, and then certainly not about Nostr. And then, like, certainly these people are like, "What do you do for a living?" Family and friends are like, "We're happy for you. You're not homeless." They're like, "What do you do? Why do you believe in this? Bitcoin is boiling the oceans, and mining is boiling the oceans, and AI is boiling the oceans." This is like stuff that my niece has told me, and I'm like, "Well, guess what? This is what I work in. I guess I'm an ocean boiler." But the cool thing about mining is that now you're starting to see that it's becoming more of a mainstream thing because people are starting to realize, oh, I can mine Bitcoin and use flared gas. So like oil's not evil. Like we can actually, power things with
Hmm.
what? And so maybe it's just me and the circles I travel in, but I start to see stories like that more and more. And I realize that we're in a long game. Right. And then not everybody's going to be able to work in Bitcoin, but everybody probably Bitcoinify or Nostrify the space that they work into, which I think is just as valid at being able to do that or have the skill to do that as hyper Bitcoinization comes along or Nostr adoption comes along. I think there's a space for everybody, but I think not having fear, and I think what you touched on of like, is it healthy for you where you are? Do you YOLO and take a leap of faith, kind of like I did? Because I had the ability to. But also, I would mention that sometimes I think a lot of people, as a single person, I don't have a spouse to kind of fall back on. And so I don't have like somebody around to be like, oh, hey, I'm gonna help you out. I'm gonna do the groceries and dinner and do the laundry. Like that would be such great support. I don't have that. And
Hmm.
when I do travel and go to conferences and events, I do need some support there. And like, I've got somebody that'll come in and watch the pets and watch the house and everything. And so like I
Hmm.
think when you're in a marriage and or a partnership of some kind and you've got that extra support, like yes, go for it. But if you don't, ideally you're somebody in your 20s who can just like YOLO, take a leap of faith, like Avi said, and travel around the world and do the thing. Or, you've got to be somebody who's absolutely not afraid to like lose your company provided health care and pension and figure the thing out. And so I think that's also
Yeah.
what the people in this space are built to do is figure the thing out.
Yeah. Well, health insurance is such a scam, especially in this country anyway.
Oh yeah.
I had health insurance and I barely ever touched the deductible. So everything was out of
I
pocket
know.
anyway.
Yeah.
and the premiums were daylight robbery. So
Yeah.
what was I buying exactly? Anyway, so
Nothing.
don't get me started on health
And that's
insurance.
like a whole other podcast. Yeah, I left healthcare a long time ago. Well, we start to leave these systems that we ultimately realize have no value to them. They are harming us. They're harming other
Hmm.
people. The healthcare system is part of the Fiat disease for sure. So I know you probably have to go soon. So I want to wrap up with a question about Nostr and how Nostr to me is vitally important, as I think you can agree, right? It's vitally important that it make it, that it be adopted, and that people have it, but more importantly, so they have the freedom. So
Hmm.
my opinion of Nostr is that it cannot fail. How do we ensure Nostr success?
Yeah, I think it has to continue to be the most fun place on the internet,
Mhm.
which I believe it is. So that's one. The sense of fun shouldn't go, and then the user experience has got to improve. If those two things are addressed, and I honestly think Web of Trust, all the new developments that are happening, and
Yeah.
we'll see that a lot more of it in 2026, will make discovery and curation of content so much easier on Nostr. And I think, and user experience people are working on it. Yes, these things take time. There is no single CEO who can command an army to build, a unified user interface or user experience, right? So we have to embrace this messy emergent consensus
This open
that we
source
have
world.
in this open source decentralized world.
Mhm.
That is the thing. But user experience, discovery, and curation will continue to keep Nostr the most fun place, and that's how it survives.
Awesome. And Avi, what's your favorite value for value song at the moment that I could play at the end of the podcast?
There are so many.
I know.
It's funny you
You can
ask.
pick
I
a
have
few.
because then I've been. Let me hold on. I'm going to pull up podcast index as we're
Yeah, there
talking.
you
I've
go.
forgotten the name.
You can pick more than one. I can play more than one because that's what we do around here. We do whatever we want. We've got no format except for Sam's
I've
band.
been
No
doing
format.
this for the show.
Mhm.
So I discovered this band called Polanski. They're a Finnish grunge band, a contemporary band. They sound like they're out of Seattle in the early 90s. They sound like the Stone Temple Pilots, actually. That's the one they're closest to. So why don't you have a Silver Player
Mhm.
by the band Polanski?
Okay.
Silver Player.
Silver player Polanski. Giving Polanski some love. We want to thank them for being in the value verse. Value for value the best term? Do you think? I'm going to get everybody's opinion on this year because it's so hard to
I've been
name this.
struggling with it.
Yeah. Okay. It's not just me, right?
No, I mean, I've heard value burst, I've heard the V for V movement, or whatever. And then DMU is, I know someone whoever came up with the name, they probably love it. So I'm sorry if they're listening and they're insulted by it. But it's a horrible name. It's cringe.
Yeah.
It sounds like something that Andreessen Horowitz came up with for a shitcoin project.
It's
I
very
hate it.
Calcanus. I agree. I hate it. And I've grown to dislike value for value, but we don't have a better phrase than value for value. And I don't want to use it because there's a whole cabal that will come after me and tell me I'm not using it right. So, I don't want the drama and the negativity. So it's like I've settled on like maybe it's sound music, maybe it's just independent music. I don't know.
So
But whatever it
sick.
is, we're doing a thing that's actually really fun and really cool, and Polanski's a part of that. So, and I value your opinion on things more than most people because you are chill and you don't argue with people and you have great
Mhm.
discussions. I think when we do kind of poke at you, and thank you for letting me, poke at you today and get some of your opinions and see what you think of things because, you're not a fly by night person. You are very logical and very, you prepare well. I know that you know your stuff and I know that you're going to tell me straight whatever I ask you about. And that's just one of my favorite things about you. I can always always trust Avi. Avi's in my web of trust on Nostr, but also in real life. I know like Avi's gonna tell me not what I want to hear. Avi's gonna tell me what I need to hear. And that's one of the things that makes you a good person and a value to the space. And I just can't wait to see what you keep doing, because I mean you got 2 books on Amazon. Avi Burra, he's got 21, he's got July 18th. And if you go on Indie Hub, he's got the docuseries Finding Home. He's got the NosFabrica Challenge right now, which is, are we calling it a Watt-a-thon this time around?
Yeah, it is a waterthon.
Watt-a-thon, Web of Trust, Web of
Trust.
Trust-a-thon.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that's good stewardship for Nostr, that you're supporting people who want to work on Web of Trust with this year in
Mhm.
Fabrica. So I think if I died off tomorrow, I think Nostr is obviously in good hands with Avi Burra, John Gordon, and Vitor Pamplona. You guys doing the Wadathon this year with lots of great people. And I'm excited about Web of Trust because I think that'll probably get rid of a lot of social media drama, but there's so many applications for it. I think that's probably a separate podcast. So thank you. Thank you, Avi,
Yeah,
for joining me today.
for sure. Thank you, Heather. Well, real quick,
Hmm.
David Strayhorn too, our new
Yes.
founder at NostFabrica.
I love him. Yeah, I didn't get to know him very well when we were in Nashville, but I heard later that he and I have some common interests. He's definitely someone I
Excellent.
want to talk to again for sure. So shout out to David Strayhorn. Absolutely love his expertise and Web of Trust alone. Well, Nostr's in good hands, and I think it's going good places. And this is the year of the builder, and all of the vibe coding, all of the leveling up that we're doing with all of the technology from Fountain and Pod Home on. This is going to be a fun year, Avi. I'm glad I'm kicking off the year with you. You're the best.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, thank you for having me, Heather. Thank you for the kind words. And yeah, well, looking forward to building Nostr.